As I've perused YouTube lately, I keep seeing videos with these two words popping up in the titles. Girl math. Have you heard of this? In this video, I'm going to tell you what it is, what I think of it, and the girl math that I use. So stay tuned. Hi YouTube, Autumn Beckman here. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. My channel is all about luxury living on a budget, from high-end luxury handbags and small goods to the everyday luxuries of life. If that sounds interesting to you, please make sure you subscribe, click the bell notification icon to be notified when I post new videos, and be sure to like the videos that you enjoy. And one of the perks of subscribing to my channel is you get to see my community posts on your YouTube homepage, where I post deals, discount codes, sales, and rare finds related to these beautiful things we love. So what is girl math? Like I said, I have seen it in titles of videos lately, but I was also watching videos from one of my new friends on YouTube named David's Closet, and he and I are actually collaborating on this topic today because he mentioned girl math in one of his videos, and that got me thinking, oh yeah, I've been seeing that pop up, what is it? It got me researching, and then I was thinking this could be a really good topic to discuss in a video, so we decided to go ahead and collab together. So as soon as you're done watching my video, please go to my description box below. I will have David's video linked there, and watch his. And I think there may be some overlap in what we're going to talk about, but I don't exactly know. I think we're also going to have some pretty different perspectives on it. Oh, and one of the things that he talked about when he originally mentioned it in the video that I saw is that it needs to be renamed. I 100% agree with that. So I'm going to tell you later in this video what I'm renaming it. So once I got interested in this girl math topic, I started doing some research based on what I saw in an article from Forbes, which I'll link below if I can find it again. The term seems to have originated from a radio show, and I watched a few videos of theirs. I will link those below as well. And the way they presented this on the radio show is they would have callers call in, people who were looking to spend money on unnecessary items. And several of the women in this radio show, who were the DJs, they would come up with creative ways to justify those unnecessary purchases. And this was very much presented tongue-in-cheek. It was presented as comedy, and it was definitely presented as these justifications for spending the money were ridiculous, and they were absurd, and they were supposed to be. That was part of the comedy of it. However, the term girl math has now been used on TikTok quite a bit, and in the videos that I've seen on TikTok, a lot of them are intended to be funny, but there are also videos where even when they're intending to be funny, like it seems like they're trying to be funny, it also seems like there's a good dose of reality in what they're describing. And when you start reading the comments, you see that a lot of people are relating to the things that are supposed to be funny and saying that they actually think that way in their real life. And spoiler alert, I find it absolutely horrifying. Let me give you some examples of the kind of girl math that's presented in these TikTok videos. And there's one video in particular that I'm pulling these examples from, so I will link that video below as well. And from what I've seen in the research that I was doing, this particular video is referenced over and over again. So it seems to be a really big example of how girl math is being described. So this person says anything under $5 is free. When you buy something and then return it and you get that refund, you're actually earning money, like income. An event or a concert is free because you purchased it in advance. So by the time the date comes up that you actually go to the event, it's like it's free. Things where you preload money onto a card. The example that I keep hearing is a Starbucks card. You know how you can add money to that and you can just go in and use your card. That's free. If there's something you want to buy but you choose not to buy it, it's as if you have earned that money, like it's income, so now you have extra money to buy something else. People actually have said that they relate to this and use this kind of girl math in real life. And again, I find this horrifying. Another thing I found in my research is that there's been a trend, and particularly on TikTok, and let me just say too, I'm not on TikTok, so I'm really not familiar with what goes on there, except every once in a while a TikTok video will come up and something else that I'm looking at, and so I happen to see it there. But what I've learned is apparently there is a girl fill-in-the-blank trend, like girl dinner, which I won't even go into. That could be another video. But I will say that one of the many things that bothers me about this is just the use of the word girl to describe grown women. And that's a big reason why, even when I was seeing those videos pop up originally on YouTube that said girl math in the title, I never clicked on any of them because it automatically gives me the impression that it's probably something that is demeaning to women. More on that later. And I don't want any part of that. So just the use of the word girl. Why do grown women keep referring to themselves as girls? It's infantilizing. It's like saying girl boss, which is a phrase that has always been really cringy to me. Like, how do you expect people to take you seriously in business if you're calling yourself a girl boss? Like, men don't go around calling themselves boy boss. Or there's also boss babe. Men don't call themselves like boss hunk. I mean, can you imagine if somebody did that? How laughable that would be. And I realize that there are other things going on with girl boss and boss babe, and it could be argued that that's a way to take back power. You know how sometimes there are words that are used to demean other people, and then that group that's being demeaned will take that word back and use it to describe themselves and kind of give a new meaning to it. I wish that would die. Why don't we just stop using those demeaning words? I understand the concept behind what you're trying to do there. Personally, I just don't think it usually works. So this whole girl math thing, it really perpetuates negative stereotypes of women. And let me give you guys a little bit of background on me if you don't know this already, because this will give you a little perspective into why my perspective on this topic is what it is. I have a background in social psychology, and my emphasis was on psychology of gender. I've even taught courses on this. There are so many things in our societies that are gendered and shouldn't be, like math. Math should not have anything to do with your gender, and girl math doesn't. I should point out, and David points this out in his original video, and I'm sure he'll talk about it in the one we're collabing on here. There are men that think this way too, but there are lots of things in our society that are gendered, and we take them for granted. We don't question them because it's just how things have always been in our lifetimes. For example, in America, color is gendered. Pink is for girls, blue is for boys. Even before a child is born, people want to know what the gender of the child is going to be so they can start buying things based on color. Or even interest, like cars versus dolls. Most people don't question pink for girls, blue for boys, because it's always been that way in our own lifetimes. However, the truth is pink used to be for boys, and in other countries and other societies, there are different colors for different things, or no colors associated with gender at all, which is really how it should be. So that's where I'm coming from. That's the level of thinking that I'm coming from and the perspective that I already have coming into this on gendered topics. Now, thinking about how to reframe and rename girl math, the more I have thought about girl math as I've been preparing for this video, the more I hate it. And I'm sure some of you are thinking, and some of the comments I'll get will be that I'm taking this way too seriously. It's just a joke. I'm too easily offended. Well, let me tell you something, you're wrong. Here's the thing about being offended by things like this. The reason I am offended by it is because I have a brain that I actually use to think deeply about things. On the surface, sure, it's just a joke. And sure, if you just think superficially about things, that's all you'll see. But if you think deeper, you'll realize that girl math and so many other of these kinds of jokes often tend to be socially acceptable ways to demean groups of people. And over time, they become ingrained in our minds, both individually and collectively as a society. And this leads to creating bias. And then we have to combat systemic bias. I'll give you an example from my time in education. I've been a teacher for the last 12 years. Have you heard of STEM programs in schools? STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math. And what these programs do is they focus on getting girls in school interested in those subjects. Why, you might ask, would there be a focus just on girls to get them interested in these subjects? Aren't these subjects important for everyone? Well, yes, of course they are. But because we as a society have developed biases that women aren't good at those subjects, girls have grown up hearing that and they internalize it. Like, how many times, I know I'm speaking to a mostly female audience here, so how many times have you heard a girl, or you yourself when you were a girl, or even as an adult, how many times have you heard a girl say, I'm just not good at math, which, by the way, is not true. Math is a skill that can be learned like any other skill. It's more challenging for some people. Also, there are lots of different kinds of math. Like for me, Some of the more abstract fields of math, like some algebra when I was in school, that was more challenging for me. But when I put my mind to it, I could still do it. It just wasn't something that interested me that much. Whereas something like geometry or statistics, I loved those. And they made more sense to me because my brain is more logical. The way I think, I need numbers to be more logical and tangible. Accounting, too, makes more sense to me. So I was great at those, some areas of math, but others were more challenging. But in our society, there's this whole idea that women, girls aren't good at math. Girls internalize that. They come to believe they're not good at math, and so they don't pursue math as a field, or science, or technology, or engineering. So the STEM programs are a very intentional way to combat systemic bias in our society and convince girls that yes, you are good at these things and you can do this and they're interesting. You just need to be introduced to it in a different way. And STEM has become a big business and can be very expensive. So getting back around to my original point, how about instead of us getting to a point where we have systemic bias that we have to combat, how about we start at the source and just stop with the demeaning jokes? Now back to social media. When I was researching girl math, I saw two types of thinking that were described as girl math. One bothers me, one doesn't. The one I'm okay with has to do with justifying purchases that are not necessary purchases. That radio show that I talked about earlier, and again, I'm gonna link two of their videos below. One is justifying a woman who called in asking about getting $400 hair extensions for her wedding. The other is a woman who called in, and y'all are gonna have to help me understand this because I don't understand this phenomenon. Getting tickets to the Taylor Swift Eras tour. I don't listen to her. I'm not obsessed with any musicians or celebrities, and so the whole hype around all that, I don't get it. If any of you are interested in that, can you help me understand? Can you tell me what the big deal about that is? But anyway, this one was calling in and she couldn't get tickets to the Taylor Swift show in her country, but she was able to get them in another country. I think it was Australia. So she not only bought tickets there, but bought tickets to all four, I think, of the shows that Taylor Swift was doing there. And of course, also had to buy airfare and hotel and maybe a rental car. So what should have been going to a concert and maybe you're going to spend a couple $100s doing that turned into many thousands of dollars. So on this radio show, they go about it in a ridiculous, absurd, comedic way of justifying all that extra cost she spent to spend money on this thing that's not necessary. And that I'm okay with because you can do what you want with your money. What I'm not okay with is the math part of the girl math because it's not math. What it is spending money and then pretending like you didn't just spend money. What it is irresponsibility and denial. And if I could rename girl math to something else, I could call it something like creative accounting, or maybe more accurately, irresponsible accounting. But if you want to know what I really call it, being real honest with you, it's just stupidity. I said what I said. So I'm gonna reframe girl math and tell you the kind of girl math that I do. First of all, I wouldn't call it girl math. I'd call it grown-ass woman accounting. So for those of you who don't know, I was raised poor. I had a father who was a drug dealer, became a drug addict, stopped working, stole from us all the time. A mother who was much better than he was and did the very best she could, but her income was not enough to cover the expenses of 2 adults and 2 children. So we very often went without basic necessities like electricity and water. If you're interested in hearing more about that, I have a whole video series. I will link that below. Because of that way that I grew up, I know the meaning of a dollar. I know for certain that money is not free, and I know what struggle is. That's why for as long as I can remember, my goals in life have been to get educated, to work hard, to pull myself out of poverty, and to stay out of poverty. When I was a child, my financial goal for my future was not to be wealthy, to have a mansion and a Ferrari. It was that when I was an adult, I would never have to worry about whether I had $5 to buy something that cost $5. I mean, literally, that was my financial goal for myself when I was a child. Now, I have certainly reached that goal and surpassed it. And I'm very proud of that because it took a whole lot of work and I still work really hard. And one of the ways that I keep on top of my finances is by tracking every penny that I spend. When I'm paid, the first thing I do is pay bills, and then my retirement savings are automatically taken out, and I put money into savings automatically before anything else. And I did a video a while back called My Massive Credit Card Debt. I'll have that linked below. It was called that because my channel here is primarily about expensive handbags. And having been a teacher for the last 12 years, very much on a budget, a lot of people assumed, and I would get comments about this, that I was in massive credit card debt because of the bags. Reality is that wasn't true at all. I never put the bags on credit cards. But in that video, one of the things I mentioned is that I track every penny that I earn and spend. And I do that by a spreadsheet that I created. And I've used it for years and it's worked really well for me. In the comments of that video, there were several people who said that they would really like a copy of that spreadsheet so they could use it for themselves. Well, a year or two later, I have finally been able to provide that for you. So I've created this spreadsheet. It's a template and it also has instructions on how to do everything. It's not difficult. It's a pretty basic spreadsheet. But I've made a copy in Excel and one in Google Sheets, and I have those linked below so you can access them. You will have to pay $3 to access it. But look, by TikTok girl math standards, anything under $5 is free, right? Of course, that's not actually free. It is still $3. But I feel like that's a price that's accessible to pretty much everybody, and it helps in a small way to fund all the work that I do on this channel. It's also my first attempt at creating and selling a digital product, so this is a little bit of a test run, and if you purchase the document, you'll see a way to leave me feedback on it, and I would really appreciate it if you could do that. Let me know what works well for you about it, what you think could be improved. But back to grown woman accounting. I use that spreadsheet to track my income and expenses in my primary checking account. So this particular spreadsheet just works for one account. I have multiple accounts, so it gets more complicated, and I may release some other spreadsheets that can help you figure out multiple accounts and reconcile those together. And I also have other sections where I can plan my future expenses. So for example, when I was still teaching, I was paid every other week. So I would have a section where it had every other week, and then I would have the bills that were due between those two paychecks. So I would have the amount of that paycheck minus all the bills, so I would see what I had left over after that paycheck. But in teaching, since that's a job I knew I would have for a whole year and I knew I would have that income for a whole year, I actually would plan a year in advance. So like in September when I started a new school year, I knew what money I was earning and spending through the following August and what I would have left over. That way I'm never surprised by fees. And I would have, monthly bills, but then I would also have bills that happen once a year, like my car registration. Just build in absolutely everything you can think of that you'll be spending on. So you're never surprised. But then sometimes I'd get bonuses that I wasn't expecting. Those extra money, that would go straight into savings, or tax refunds straight into savings. Now, when I did have unexpected expenses, things that weren't bills, like for example, I had a dog that had cancer and needed surgery. The cost for that was about $7,000. I did not have that much to just drop at the time, so that I did put on credit. I used a care credit card, which is a healthcare card. So when I have had debt, I use one of two methods depending on what I can afford. So I either figure out how long I want to take to pay that bill off. Like let's say I wanted to pay off the $7,000 over a year, and then I just figure out how much I need to pay per month to make that happen. Or if I couldn't afford that, then I would figure out how much I could afford per month and then see how long it would take me. And then when I would have extra money come in that I wasn't expecting, like the bonuses, the tax refunds, that could go into paying off that debt more quickly. Now, regarding unnecessary expenses and how I justify those using grown woman accounting, let's take handbags as an example. The way I justified my very first luxury handbag was that I learned that they tend to hold their value pretty well. Now, it depends on what bag and what brand, and it depends on a lot of things. But just knowing that if I spent $1,000 on a handbag, that if I ever needed to sell it, I'd be able to, and I'd be able to get that money back or most of it, sometimes even more than that. That is what allows me to justify spending money on bags. Now with me, I'm in a little bit of a special situation too, because YouTube is my business. So the bags have become business expenses. But even so, I'm still strategic about what I buy. Will I wear it? Is it quality? Do I think it's worth the price? Am I getting getting the best deal? Do I think it'll hold its value? Is it a bag that I will actually wear and still wear in 6 months or a year or 5 years? Cost per wear is something that has been talked about in the girl math videos, particularly regarding some of the unnecessary purchases. And that's not girl math, that's actual math. It can really be a smart thing to buy something that's more expensive if it's going to last longer, as long as you're using it. So there are actually a few things in the girl math that aren't so terrible. I just think the whole thing needs to be reframed in a way that's more positive to the way women actually do their accounting. Because in households, women tend to be the ones who do a lot of the accounting and the shopping for the home. And I believe most of us are savvy with money because we know we need to be. We know how to stretch a dollar. We know how to get bargains because we're not girls doing fake math. We are grown women doing informed and responsible accounting. Make sure you head on over to David's Closet. I'll have his video linked below to see his perspective on girl math. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Hope to see you back here next time, and I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye.